So tonight we have Dr. Leslie Ellestad, and Leslie is a retired family physician who had a private practice in Calgary for 35 years. She loves being a grandmother and is replenished by being active outdoors. She began her meditation practice in 1998 and has studied in the Tibetan insight and secular meditation traditions. She is inspired by the benefits of a long-term meditation practice. Combining her understanding of traditional meditation training, neurobiology, and psychology, she enjoys sharing the practice with those who are interested. Retirement is providing the opportunity for more simplicity and ease in daily life, and this is supportive of her interest in the study and practice of meditation and yoga. So with that, tonight Leslie brings us Mindfulness of Uncertainty. Most of us will encounter situations in our lives where we are not sure what to do. In this meditation and talk, we will learn how to take the time and space needed to see more clearly, leading us to a deeper understanding from which to act. Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone. It's really nice to be here with you. Like you, I spend quite a bit of time on Zoom meetings. Even though I'm retired, I'm taking lots of courses online, and they're mostly on a computer. So it's nice to see people in 3D. You're breathing,
Exactly.
and wow, that's cool. I had a guided meditation, but you've already had some meditation guidance. So what I'm thinking, I'm going to switch it around, and I'm going to do my talk, and then if we have time, I will also do a short meditation. So my talk this evening is on mindfulness of uncertainty. And there's basically two approaches I'm taking to, I'm going to speak about it. The first is as a truth of life, that most of us would like to be able to control life as much as possible, and which is not unwise to, do your best to buy the right groceries, raise your children well, get a job that you like, all those things that you can put an effort into to hopefully have what you want, what you think you want anyways at the time that you make the plans. So part of it is that we sometimes change our mind about what we want and we have to adjust. But the other part is things don't always turn out the way we want them to. Something as simple as the weather could interfere with you getting on that plane that's supposed to be taking you to that holiday that you really want to get to. I don't know if any of you were involved in the January weather trying to go somewhere last January on WestJet. I had my flight canceled, I think 4 times, and by the time they gave me a flight, it was 1 day before my return. So I did not go. And they did give me my money back after some effort. But that's an example of where we have a desire for something to happen and it actually doesn't work out. The other time is obviously accidents happen. My brother-in-law this year was skiing at one of the Banff resorts and ended up going in a route, part of a hill that was dangerous, and he broke his shoulder. So all of us have probably had those kind of accidents or known other people who have. Sometimes the people we want to rely on disappoint us. Maybe they turn out that they're dishonest and we have to figure out how, or they're not totally dishonest, but they've been dishonest about something and we have to figure out how to respond to that. The other part is health, like not in injuries, but our health can change and then we have to adjust to that. And no matter how old we are, we're all at risk of dying. Of course, the likelihood increases with age, but it's uncontrollable in many ways. So we have this illusion, in a sense, that we can control things. And probably to some degree, there are people who have a lot of resources, and they're very skilled at controlling their environment. I was actually talking to a guy after I went to a retreat, and he was 42 years old, and he'd retired 10 years earlier. I said, "How did you do that?" Well, he was on Wall Street. and he went around the US, and he was American, and figured out where the best place for him to live for tax reasons and the environment. And he had so much control over his life, but he didn't have total control. And he asked me, because I was a retired physician, did I know about this stem cell research that you could actually like control your aging? He said, you know, it's really appealing that you could possibly influence your aging. So we do want as much control as possible, but even for him, someday he's going to be in his 80s, and hopefully we'll get there, and he's going to age and die just like the rest of us, even though he's very wealthy and going to try his hardest not to. So how do we deal with this truth of uncertainty? Is really to accept that it's inevitable. We cannot control our life. And so then what do we do when things don't turn out the way we hope they would? So Buddhism, which is what I've been trained in, has got some very practical ideas for how to deal with this truth. First of all, you learn to deal with it through meditating, because you notice when you're meditating that things are constantly changing. Even your breath is changing. Your in-breath and your out-breath. Every single breath is different than the last one. And so you become accustomed to watching and observing the truth of what some people call impermanence, other people call inconstancy, that nothing stays the same. And then the second thing is you learn about the advantage of inconstancy. Inconstancy gives us a chance to grow and develop. If we stayed the same, we wouldn't have the opportunity to learn new things, to correct our less valued traits within ourselves, but inconstancy change gives us this opportunity to learn. The other thing we learn is that if we try to grip onto things, we actually suffer. So we become gradually more and more convinced that trying to control things is the root of our suffering. And what is the definition of insanity? It's to keep doing the same thing, trying to control things, and expecting that it's going to make you happy. We can respect uncertainty. Everything is always a work in progress, and things are always evolving. So again, when something doesn't turn out the way we hoped, we can embrace it as it is and do our best to meet the challenge. So one of the people I was listening to, his name is Ajahn Brahm, when I was preparing this talk, is a very good-natured and probably well-practiced monk in Australia. And he said that he gets lots of people who come to him for advice and talk about the unfortunate events, things that they don't like happening in his life. And he says, well, I quickly moved to, well, what are you going to do about it? Because past the event not being what you want, you have a chance to respond to it. You do need to be compassionate with yourself and compassionate with others as we adjust to unexpected results. But if we look at unexpected results as a challenge instead of a blockage to what we are meeting in life, how can I meet this, and where can I grow through meeting it? I want to see a show of hands. How many of you think you're pretty adaptable and you don't get too flustered by unexpected results? Yeah, about a third. So the rest of us probably have more to learn here, but I'll be interested to hear when I get to the end of the talk some of your views on how you do well at that and what you struggle with. First of all, our hopes and our expectations are often unrealistic. We often expect things to go differently than they're likely to go. So when we're making plans, if we have in mind while we're making them that it might not turn out that way, that there's many things going on that we cannot control. The other thing that's an advantage about embracing uncertainty is that we're less likely to have the difficult emotions that go go along with something turning out the way we don't want, such as shock, surprise, excessive anger, excessive hurt, excessive disappointment. So there really is an advantage to learning how to deal with uncertainty. So all plans can only be tentative. When the unexpected happens, the question is, what are we going to do about it? We can use those experiences to do what we call waking us up, learning how to be more skillful in life. And in the traditions I've studied, skillful means that you are less likely to cause harm by what you do, and you're more likely to bring benefit. A very simple definition. When I was preparing this talk, I was thinking about the stories I tell people when I come back from holidays, and a good percentage of them are the difficulties. You know, the plane was late, or I had to stay overnight in a hotel, and we went here, and the food was good at that restaurant, but over here you should have seen what happened. So it makes for good stories to tell. You know, there was a flood while I was traveling. I mean, one time we were traveling and the ferry caught on fire, and we had to get off the ferry into those floaty boats, and that was a really good story. It wasn't pleasant at the time, but it made a good story. So as a metaphor for this whole circumstance of life, that there always are going to be results we don't want. Imagine that you wake up in the morning and you go out your front door, not to get your newspaper anymore, but just to sniff the air, see if there's fire in the air or whatever time of year it is. And you notice that there's a big pile of cow manure on your front yard. So what do you go and put it in your pockets, in your hood of your hoodie, in your shirt, in your shoes? No, you don't. You might, if you have a garden, dig it into your garden and use it to grow beautiful, luscious plants and trees and shrubs. And this is the metaphor for what we can gradually develop skill in through meeting our difficulties. The unexpected is to use it to gradually increase our capacity for dealing with life. Now, this process can take time. Most of us will encounter situations in our lives where we're not sure what to do. And we may need to take quite a bit of time to figure out, what am I going to do about this? So the rest of this talk is going to be about what we do when we don't know what to do. And I have to attribute this portion of the talk to one of my people that I follow, a Buddhist teacher who I follow. His name is Gil Fronsdal. And if you haven't run into him, he often is doing a meditation in the morning at 8 a.m. in Calgary. But it's recorded and it's on YouTube. So if you're already at work, you can watch it later. But he is one of the most helpful teachers I've run into for both the practice of meditation and the wisdom aspect of the learning. So this is from him. And he says that the first thing is to choose to not make things worse. Because when we have the unexpected, a lot of our impulses tend to go towards the side of human nature that is responding to a crisis does tend, what we might call a crisis or unexpected, does tend toward results that are not that well considered. Many of you may have heard of the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses of stress. And the results of those responses tend not to be very, very helpful to us. So one of the ways that might show up is that we might feel like we want to run away from a situation. And if we don't run away physically, we might numb ourselves out. And that doesn't mean just using substances. It means like just pretend you're not there, stop listening, avoid. We might want to try to fix a situation before we really know what is the wise way to approach it, or control it. Some people control is very important to them. We might think that it's helpful to blame someone whether it's ourselves or other people. I have had friends who, one of the most important responses they have to troubles is, who should I blame for it? Should I blame myself or my husband? Um, and those are not helpful. So what is the wise response is to use the situation to deepen our understanding. And I myself tend to look for outside supports. So I take lots of courses and train in lots of things to try to understand more deeply. My husband does a lot of looking on YouTube. How do I fix the car? How do I and whoa, we save a lot of money because he figures it out. Whatever I'm trying to fix my inner self and he's taking care of all the exterior things. We're both doing useful work. Gil uses this mnemonic, I guess it is, of worse, how not to make things worse. And that includes waiting, organizing or orienting, resting or relaxing, sensing or seeing, and express or empathize. So the first step is to press the pause button, wait. And most of the time we can do that. Most of the time it's not an emergency. Obviously there's times where you don't want to wait, like your hand's on the stove and it's burning, you don't want to wait, you want to take it right off. Or your kids run out in front of traffic, you don't want to wait, you have to do something right away, or you're having chest pain that seems like it could be a heart attack, you want to like phone 911. There are emergencies where you have to respond immediately. So when we pause, the advantage of pausing is that we then can observe ourselves more closely. What impulses are arising? And we have the time to see, is this impulse likely to bring me the benefit that I want? And decide whether to act on it or not. We have the time to gather more information. And also, while we're pausing, there's a time for things to shift and change. Often these situations are between people. So it's not only about us, it's about other people. So you have a conflict with someone, and if we respond immediately, we're not giving each other enough time to see, both for ourselves and the other person, to, first of all, downregulate our response of fight, flight, freeze, and second of all, to come up with a wider breadth of ideas on how do I help. We're processing, and some new thoughts or perspectives may emerge. We also have the time when we wait to physically relax, to relax our body and therefore also relax our mind. And when we relax our body and mind, which is something we find out when we have a regular meditation practice, the centers in the brain that are to do with rational thinking through things, are functioning a lot better. So sometimes a spacious silence between people is enough. That's all you need, is to take some time, have some silence, and come back to the topic when each of you has had time to consider. Other times it might be that we need to explore what's going on for you. What's going on for me? You've had time when you're in silence. What's going on for me? And then asking questions of the other person. Show some openness and care with their questions. Some suggestions are, I don't understand everything here. Can you tell me more? Or can you explain what you're saying in another way? How do you see it? What do you think? And I don't know about you, but often my response is the other way. I want to tell you what I think, and don't you see? And that doesn't work very well. When we're on our own, you could probably have your own ways you self-soothe. Some of mine are to go for a walk in nature, exercise, meditate, listen to music, dancing. All those are some of the ways. Watching a movie, being with a friend, all of these ways to help soothe ourselves and get ourselves to settle. And when we do this, either together or alone, we give space for really the creative part of our brain, the part of our brain that can come up with new ideas and solutions to start functioning. And it's not avoidance. It's different than avoidance. It could turn into avoidance if you don't actually deal with the issue. Although one of the things Gil has taught me, he says a lot of problems don't get solved. They just dissolve because we stop reacting and it's not a problem anymore. A lot of what we perceive as a problem is our reaction to something. So it might be that part of the creative energy is that we let the problem dissolve. It's really not a problem anymore. So the second step of worse is, so W is wait and O is to organize or orient ourselves toward the fullness of who we are. We are not just the person who's upset and confused and angry. We are also a person who has a caring heart, who can think broadly, who wishes well, and has confidence. So when we're stressed, we narrow down into what isn't our full self. But when we wait and take time, we start to see a bigger part of ourselves. We become more whole. And I've been recently, this kind of flashing into my mind, I'm taking a course on meditation that's based on a book by a guy who's kind of expanded the meditation world. He was English and unfortunately he died quite young, but he wrote this book. And a testament to the book is that there's 600 people taking this course on Zoom. And what he says is that we have whatever's happening and we focus on it, but it's a very important part of whether you're meditating or in your life to see what else is there, because we shut down, we narrow down. And so one of the techniques can be, say you're having an issue with a clerk at a store. One of the ways you want your point to get across, they're just not hearing you. One of the things you can do is just to widen your view, like take in the space all around. Or you can look for something that you like about the person. You like their haircut or their clothing that they're wearing or their smile. So often we start missing those things when we're focused on a challenge. And in meditation, what tends to happen over time is we have what are called, in the tradition, they're called sankharas. So they're habit patterns that show up in our body. And as part of the healing process through a long-term meditation practice, awareness, our natural healing awareness starts to like hone in on those parts of ourselves and process them and try to heal them. But what can be difficult is that it can be very intense. So depending what's happened to you in your life, you may have a lot of strong emotions that got stored away, along with unpleasant physical sensations, memories. And instead of just allowing awareness to focus in on that, it's very important to also, in myself, it's on the left side of my body, so I often have to say, okay, what's going on the right side of my body? It feels a lot better over there than over here. And so it's really skillful to know that you don't just pay attention to what's unpleasant. You also include what's not disturbed and what's pleasant. So I was referring to it already, but there is this natural capacity that meditation brings us into for healing. And I've experienced this over many years, that it's a process that is challenging but very fruitful. So people often say, I go on lots of meditation retreats. People say, have a good retreat. What really you should say is have a fruitful retreat, because there is a fruit that comes, but you often need to meet your own suffering, your own struggles in order to get to the fruit. Let's see where I want to go. So as you've probably learned at other talks here, we have a nervous system that extends right to the tips of our toes and the tips of our fingers and goes into all of our organs and feeds us back information. And that whole nervous system is affected by our well-being. And through the process of one of the ways is through the process of meditation, is becoming more and more sensitive to the information that's coming from our nervous system. And both in daily life, we can use it to pick up on what we're sensing from others. And this is one of the advantages to this commitment to pausing and allowing ourselves to see what's going on. And that's the step of sensing. Oh, I missed the rest. That might be a Freudian slip, because resting and relaxing is something I'm learning to do. Yeah, so the between O and S is intentionally relaxing. So you would think, well, I'm wound up. Just saying relax doesn't work, but you can train yourself to enhance your ability to relax. So that is an important part of the skills we learn with meditating. So then sensing our body sensations as we were doing in the meditation, and sensing our emotions and seeing our thoughts more clearly is part of what we are doing when we get to the S of worse. And when we sense and see more clearly, then we have a lot more access to wisdom. We will see both layers of suffering in a situation, and as I mentioned, we'll see some of the layers of our own spiritual beauty, our own love, our own capacity for love, and our own strength. And then the last step is to empathize and express. So learning how to express ourselves wisely is a large area of learning, but the most important part is how open is your heart, how clear is your mind. It's not so much training training, there are many wise speech kinds of trainings that I've been introduced to, but the most important part is, where's my heart? Am I open-hearted? Am I feeling some capacity for kindness and compassion, both for myself and the other person? Am I calm, which is where the cortex functions more accurately? And if we are, then we're more likely to say the things that are going to be helpful. That doesn't mean we can't tell other people we're upset, but we need to do it in such a way that it doesn't stimulate defensiveness or division between people. So this particular teacher that I'm studying with really emphasizes the importance of harmony, the harmony between people. And he wrote this, it's a very touching words that he wrote yesterday in response to the election. It doesn't matter what your view is about the US election. He's American, this teacher, but we know that the world is in a lot of turmoil, and we need wise people to support us in responding. So I actually want to read what he wrote, because it's very wise. So he says, the greater our challenges, the greater the value of Buddhist practice. And I happen to be Buddhist, you may not be, that doesn't matter. It's just having a training that helps you manage life. Rather than a practice to avoid challenges or to avoid celebration, it is a practice that prepares us to meet them wisely and calmly. We can meet all our inner life with honesty and goodwill, so we can be wise and skillful. In all challenges, it is possible to find inner peace and freedom, equally open to grief and heartbreak as to joy and love. We can never know what future will arise from our today. Being caught up in imagined futures limits future possibilities. Out of tragedy, a new love may be born. Every crisis is an opportunity for the heart to grow. Each conflict contains a to-be-discovered recipe for the greater good. In this not known future, you can make a difference, and you will probably never know all the differences you will contribute. A small act of kindness may be passed out into the world with no news bulletin for how it calms an angry person. A small act of unkindness may send out ripples of hostility until it reaches an angry person who then hurts someone else. Let the world of the future begin with your next step, next words, and next response. Don't assume this is someone else's responsibility or that you have no role. The future depends on how you make that step, how you speak, and how you respond. When you offer respect, you will make a different future than with your disrespect. If you are friendly, others may be friendly. But if you are hostile, others may become hostile. When you demonstrate care for the welfare of others, They may care for you. Let's make a better world for everyone who faces prejudice, hostility, and disrespect. Let's help everyone prosper with the necessities of life. Let's build a society where everyone respects each other without demeaning anyone. So those words to me speak deep truth about what actually helps us have a sense of belonging and feel hopeful that we can make a difference. And so he wrote a prayer for our times. He said, "Where there is love, let us stand side by side, regardless of our differences. Where there is hate, let us stand in hate's way with love. Where others offer care, we offer to help. Where others neglect to care, we offer what we can. Where there is respect, we offer friendship. Where there is no respect, we offer kindness." So this is a training to get to the point that he's gotten to, and I've seen that he acts the way he talks, which is encouraging because it's often easy to say words but not live them. So he's now trained and taught for 50 years. So if those words seem like they're a very high bar for you, they are. And it's still hopeful that we can do some of it, and that the sum of it that we do will make a difference. I think we all resonate with that truth when we hear those kinds of words. And we also understand the natural human tendency to not do those things, to be disrespectful, to be unkind, even to be cruel. Those are also part of the human nature. And I'm glad that you're here, because the practice that you're engaging in helps us to develop more capacity for the kindness and wisdom that are needed in this world. So we have 10 minutes, and I'm going to guide a short sit as well, if you're ready for it after all those words. And when I was preparing this talk, I came to the truth that for myself, I have to do a lot of what's called cultivation. So part of meditation is just being present with how you are. Another part of it is actually cultivating habits of mind that help the mind to grow into a more awakened and wise state. So with my conditioning, I do a lot of cultivating. And I happen to be a person who feels my body. Like, I have a lot of nerves that I feel in my body and sense things. So I'm going to use a body-based meditation and a little bit of touch. So we're going to start with our own hands, and then just bring our hands to our foreheads, and then just lightly touching, like you might touch a loved one, or it could be a furry friend, and just a light stroke on the forehead. And imagine that you are bringing light into your forehead through this kind, soft caring that your fingers are giving you. And then when you feel you're done with that, putting one finger on either side of each eye, and just with a light pressure on the outside of each eye. And then imagine that you're looking at someone who you find delightful. Maybe it's a friend of yours, or your child in a moment in which they are delightful. They're not always delightful. Or a memory that you have of being somewhere that was delightful to you. And as you feel with your fingers, you're helping your nervous system to locate your eyes, and bring your attention into your eyes. And just imagine that you're feeling a natural delight in response to what's in front of you. And bring that delight into your eyes, kind of like a sparkle in your eyes, a sparkle of delight, joy. My eyes are happy. And now putting one finger on your nose, just on the tip of your nose. And I don't know, when I was a kid, we used to pretend we were what we called Eskimos, but now would be called Inuit. And we would rub noses. But maybe you could just rub your finger like lightly over your nose with a kind of sense of affection for your nose. This nose is important to me. It gives me lots of information, humidifies the air, clears out particles, and I appreciate it. And just the thought of rubbing noses in an affectionate way brings a smile. So now we can move down to our lips and just touch our lips and notice how soft they are. They have a lot of what are called parasympathetic nerves in them. And that's one of the reasons that romantic kissing is valued by humans, because it brings in a sense of safety and relaxation when we stimulate the nerves in the lips. But you can just bring your own attention to your lips and appreciate their softness and the way that softness helps your own nervous system to relax. And then letting your hands come down to your heart, putting your hands on your heart. And as we leave our mouth, we just leave it with a soft smile, just a mild smile, gentle smile. And then feeling into our hearts. And thinking of someone who we have an easy relationship with, someone in our life who it's easy to be around. We like being with them. And taking a minute to think of who that might be. And sensing into our hearts. And sending these wishes out to that person. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe and protected. And may you be peaceful and at ease, just as you are. One more time for this person. We can imagine them in front of us, looking into their eyes, to their face. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe and protected. And may you be peaceful and at ease. And just like this person, we deserve ourselves the same wish. So now we'll make that wish for ourselves. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe and protected. And may I be peaceful and at ease. And then once more, may I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe and protected, and may I be peaceful and at ease. I'm okay just as I am. I accept myself just as I am. And then bringing our hands onto our bellies. Now, the way the belly can help us with a cultivation is, I find, to imagine how we felt, the contentment we can feel sometimes after a good meal, at the end of a day where we've done something we either have felt accomplishment from or some joy from, and we're now resting, we're well fed, we're safe. And so sensing into that feeling of contentment. I'm okay. Things are all right. I have enough. I am enough. The people I'm with are enough. This moment is enough. I am content. And so just feeling your breath moving up and down. And then bringing your hands onto your lap or onto your thighs, whatever feels right for you. And here we can sense into the body's capacity for stability, groundedness. And this comes back to what Christine was guiding us with, feeling the solidity of the earth, the stability that provides us. Stability of the mind and body is an important quality for well-being. So can we connect with our body's capacity to sense into stability? Okay. So that was a brief guided tour of your body from a meditation perspective. And now we have time for reflections where you can tell us about your experience, tell each other about your experience of what we talked about in the guided meditations, both Christine's and mine. If you have any comments that you want to share, or if you have any questions that you would like to ask. And I'll do my best to repeat your question so that it can be heard on the recording, but I will not identify you. I'm very curious what that was like for you, because of course I've meditated for years, and some of you probably have never meditated. But if you have any comments about whether that worked, like I've never guided that meditation before, and it's my personal approach. Nobody's ever done it for me either. It's just something that works for me.
That was the first time for me the body scan actually felt like meditating. I usually do my breath.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with body scans.
Yeah. So touching and imagining supported you.
Abstract, where you try to do it, actually do it. Give me something to focus
Okay, good. Did you get a twinkle in your eye?
on. With a smile.
With a smile. Yeah,
It's always a good part.
yeah. They say a real smile reaches your eyes. So you can practice that. If you're wanting to enhance your mood, see if you can make your smile get up to your eyes. Not by this, but by the emotional connection between smiling and happiness.
I think that's really common in body scan, because we spend so much time here, and then all of a sudden we're traveling into the body, and it's like, my feet, huh? So I think that that's very, very common.
Especially the ones that start at the feet go up. If you lose me
It's
at
like,
the waist.
all the way around there. I've been up here all day. Yeah.
Do some of you do any body movement practices like yoga or qigong or tai chi?
I went to Buddhist temple.
Yeah.
Free yoga on Mondays.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, so any kind of movement practice, and of course sports too. If you can bring your mindfulness into those activities, you'll probably find that it helps your meditation, and the meditation helps your mindfulness during the movement practice. I often, when I'm doing a downward dog, I see if I can feel my hands and my feet and my whole body at the same time. How about you? You're a yoga teacher.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
What do you share, Leslie, like back to your talk around the emotional regulation to, uncertainty? Because, you touched on that initially, that we can have these emotional responses, maybe like a health scare or something comes in, and, there's fear and anxiety and worry, and, that can be sustained over a long period, depending on what it might be. So what do you do in your own practice, or what would you recommend for helping people to deal with the emotions that surface with such uncertainty?
Well, there's a lot. That's a really good question. And health scares are pretty triggering for most of us. We often value our lives, and we don't want to die. And we don't want to be sick either, which is completely natural. First of all, you can kind of prepare for that eventuality by acknowledging the truth that someday you're going to get sick and someday you're going to die. So there is actually a reflection in the tradition I study where you say it every day, 5 reflections. I am of the nature to get sick. I'm of the nature to age. I'm of the nature to die. I'm eventually going to lose everything. All the people I love, everything I own, I'm going to lose it. And I cannot escape this. This is the truth of being a human being. So number 1, prepare. It's the truth. However, that doesn't mean you won't have a period of adjustment when it happens to you. So I've only had one major health scare. And my initial response was, I can do this. This is part of life. I can handle it. But that was only because all I had to do was go for a scan and wait for the scan results. I didn't get a bad report. I don't know what would have happened if I was told it could be bad, but I had a biopsy and the biopsy was negative. But some of us might have that response. So don't discount that you might have a part of you that feels like I can handle it. It's part of life. I'm expecting it, and here I'm going into this phase. Many people before me have gone through it, and I've witnessed it. I was a physician, so I witnessed it with many patients, and it's part of life. So that's true as well, that we may have a very functional part of us that is up to the task, but we will also have a part of us that's afraid, that doesn't want this to happen, probably worse the younger we are, and particularly the younger our children are. My daughter is 40-something, 43, and has young children. And that's one of her major fears, is that they would lose her because it's happened to some of her friends. So the more others would miss you, probably the more difficult it would be. And actually, I'm going to tell a little story. The last time I was visiting her, I said to her, well, you're more important than me now, because more people rely on you. I'm retired. I don't have any children to look after. And I think she really liked that I said that. I was in the back seat, squeezed between her two kids' car seats, and she was in the front. And, it's the transfer of, this is life. We get old, and the middle-aged people take up the bulk of responsibility, especially once you retire. You're like, phew, it's yours now. You can take over. So that's another part of it, is that it will be influenced, our response will be influenced by who's going to be affected by our health scares. And then dealing with fear. I've had quite a bit of experience with fear, mostly through my meditation practice, not so much through my life, but one of the most helpful things I heard from a teacher and I practiced was to take it moment by moment. So we say to ourselves, I can take this moment of fear. I can be with this moment of fear. And you just keep saying that over and over and over again to yourself. And that downregulates your fear response, because fear can lead to more fear. Ultimately, it could lead to, at the worst, a panic attack, where you're actually looping fear and increasing fear through your fear of fear. So you want to practice ahead of time. Then anytime you're afraid, just take a moment, even if it's just a minute, and see if you can be with it, really clearly be with it, just as it is, and say, I can be with this fear right now, and then I can be with the next moment. It's because we imagine it going on forever that it can be so difficult. We have such a tendency to do that. If we have physical pain, it's very often that we think this is going to last forever, instead of thinking, well, I'll get my tooth fixed and it'll be over. We're just like, I can't take this. It's going to last forever. And most of the time it doesn't. Although, unfortunately, sometimes it does go on. But it's the ability to break it down and take it moment by moment. And then the other one I tended to do a lot, because it would come up on meditation retreats, is I liked lying under my covers on the bed and feeling all snuggly and safe and taken care of. And I would just repeat the words, safe, safe, safe. And then I would say, the bed's not afraid. The Kleenex box is not afraid. You just look all around your environment and realize this is just an internal state. There's actually nothing to be afraid of. So you use everything external to you to reassure you. And if there are causes for you to be afraid, then of course, with a health scare, we might be seeking information, talking to other people who've been through it. How did they handle it? Is that enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm wondering if you have any mindfulness suggestions around feeling like you're a victim. Why is all this stuff happening to me? I'm a good person. Maybe I'm charitable. I'm kind. Why is this stuff happening to me? And just losing yourself in that, ruminating in why is this stuff, and then becoming jealous of others who are maybe not going through the same thing at that moment.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is self-compassion. So I am going through a difficulty. This is unpleasant, and I need to care about myself. I need to bring kindness and care to my struggle that I am having right now. It's not my imagination that I'm struggling. There is something happening, and I want to be kind to myself, hold myself with kindness. And then to say to ourselves, well, actually, I'm not the only one who's struggling. Because sometimes we overemphasize our aloneness when we are struggling. So, for example, health scares. We we know other people go through them. So we can just, like, sometimes I would imagine if I had something like that, you know, how many people on this block that I don't actually know very well, how many people are struggling right now with something similar to me? So I'm not alone. There are actually many human beings on this planet who are struggling probably in a much like I am. And so that helps us to feel connection and the truth of the commonality of human suffering. And then the third thing, when you said you start to feel envious of other people, is to recognize that that's a natural human response to have envy, but there is a remedy. And the remedy is to separate your suffering from their success and be able to celebrate their success. Because that's also very, very healthy for your brain. So try it sometime. When you're feeling envious of someone, mostly what you need is compassion for what you feel you don't have. And then switch your mind to just thinking about their success. And I'm happy that you're happy. Because it's not that you don't want them to be happy, it's that you want yourself to be happy too. And you think what they have is what you need to be happy. Most of us are happy that other people are happy. One of the things my son said when he was about 19, he said, you know, if I'm feeling down, I should just go to the airport and watch people come out from the international section and get greeted by their relatives. And you can just vibe off other people's happiness. Wow, that's so wonderful that people really care about each other. Or you can listen to children playing. And they're not always happy, but some of the time they're happy. We kind of idealize children, except if you're a parent, then you don't. But just, or you can watch puppy videos, whatever uplifts your spirit to bring that joy into your heart. And then recognize that you do have a capacity to celebrate other people's happiness. It's not out of your range to feel that way. And then the last thing would be, can I aim towards, what can I do to work with this situation itself? So what am I wanting that this person has? Can I do something to get it? So do I want to be more healthy? Well, maybe I could, up my game as far as my exercise, my nutrition, and taking the meds my doctor prescribed, or going to my checkups, or whatever it is that might be helpful. Can I do something to make a difference here? Or if it's that, the other person has a job that they really seem to enjoy, do I need to make a change? Or is it possible for me to make a change? Or do I just need to relate to my job differently? There's often small things maybe that we can do to improve our situation. And I want to ask Christine if she has any other responses.
It's funny because I'm thinking about recently something that happened for me because I'm building my website for my mindfulness practice because I'm a teacher. It's called Mindfulness for Life. I'm not a web developer. I'm a mindfulness teacher. This has been an exercise in mindfulness. And so there's been a lot of frustration and self-talk that has me believing, why am I doing this? I don't even think I need a website. I'll just tell people I'm having this whole dialogue. And yesterday was a terrible day. Terrible. I was like, just pack it in. So that night I could just feel my anger, my frustration, just not good. I'm sitting on the sofa and I'm talking with my 14-year-old daughter, and she's like, do you want to help me review for my physics exam tomorrow? I'm like, sure. So she starts dialoguing with me, telling me all these equations, and that's fascinating. And she's really getting into it, and she's like, but this part's so hard, Mom, and it just works so, and I'm listening to her, and I'm listening to her, and I'm like, oh, she's doing this, and it's so hard for her, and yet she's doing it. So I get to my desk today, and I sit there, and I'm like, oh, what is it? And I'm like, I could be doing a physics exam. And suddenly I felt a lot better. But it was like flipping the switch. I'm joking, but it comes with that awareness. But that was truth. I told myself that there's a perspective here that I can shift. It's true, this sucks, and yeah, I'm not a web developer, I'm not an expert, but like I could feel my frustration and yet I could switch it. Like similar to what Leslie's suggesting with that feeling of like, am I a victim in this or actually can I bring something else to this challenge? Like how can I make it different for myself? But it has to start with that awareness, that listening to what we're telling ourselves, because the patterning is always there. You know, it's like as soon as I tuned in, it's like, oh, I've heard this story before, right? And we all have it. We all have it. Nobody gets out without it. But like, do we have the awareness to listen to what we're telling ourselves and interrupt it? Your question at the beginning, Leslie, where you asked everyone who typically deals with uncertainty without, a big response, and about a third of you put your hands up. So, would anyone like to share a little bit more on their thoughts around how they deal with that uncertainty in such a free-flowing way?
I'll just say one thing that through my meditation practice is touching on what you're sharing is really being curious to go in and the awareness. I think if you are open to your own curiosity about self, for me has been the biggest door opening. It's not about anyone else other than me, and it's going back to the samskaras and what am I carrying, what am I bringing forward, and where is that coming from? And it's easy to blame other people and to look at it and then go, but it's coming from somewhere within. And I think the scariest thing for myself was always turning that inward, right? Because then you have to sit with the emotion and the feeling and going, where does that come from, right? And peeling back those layers, it's what we try to avoid so much of is our emotions and feelings, and we're all fixers, I find, right? It's, when you talk about health scares, it's like, oh, it'll be okay, or you will, and it's like instead of just saying, wow, that's must feel awful, and just allowing people to feel it and work through those feelings, which to me has helped me. It's okay to feel awful. It's okay to not to stay there. Just acknowledge it where it's coming from, and then so that for me has been my practice of really being vulnerable with myself.
Yeah. So bringing curiosity. How is this? What's it like? And how am I relating to it?
That's a wonderful practice because often, I've had moments, to what Leslie was talking about, where big emotions come up in a practice and it's unexpected, and all of a sudden it's here and it's right now and there wasn't a story, but I can feel this emotional response. And that curiosity of what you're talking about is to come into that witness self and say, it's like, what would you have me know and what is here now? And to be able to listen with compassion, with kindness, and whatever our capacity is in that moment. Might not have to be with it in its entirety, but we can look at it and stay curious with it, and then come out and maybe go back in. But to Leslie's point, it's the nature of the practice to watch it change and evolve. And so I love that you've shared that. That's great.
Anything else anyone wants to bring up, ask questions about? Yes.
I'll share a couple of thoughts. I found your question quite difficult, actually. Even though I kind of raised my hand if I was doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always worth asking those questions in a black and white kind of way, even when they're not black and white answers fundamentally, right? But some of the stuff that I found is that there are
would say, but there's uncertainties that are somewhat predictable and uncertainties that are not. There's this complete surprises, completely out of the blue. I've never considered this. I have no idea. That's one type of uncertainty. There's uncertainties where something's, for one of a, somehow something's going to happen, but you don't know the outcome actually. So there's uncertainty, right? This week I felt stress around the election to our neighbors and stuff, and I felt very aware of that, and it was kind of like the uncertainty of what it was going to transpire to be, and so that to me was an example of uncertainty, but I know it's coming, and you can often, if you have some semblance of something that's coming, you can have some kind of sense of possible outcomes, possibilities, or scenarios, and some of which you may know are going to be stressful, some of them less so, and that knowledge for me allows me to think about what other possible stressors might I remove, even if it's just take some things off my daily to-do list or whatever, to calm myself down or to reduce exposure. I went for 3 days without, I was not listening to the radio, news reports, anything, like just get my mind off this. Because actually, I know what the possible outcomes are actually. Like, the uncertainty is just which one, and I don't need to hear more about it actually. And I found that quite calming, and ultimately, when I ended up finding out from somebody else what the outcome was, I actually felt very calm about the whole thing. Anyway. The other thought that went through my head around this is this notion of what do you have control over and what do you don't have control over. And for me, a gray zone in that has been, I can ask myself that question, what do I have control over, what do I don't? And at either ends of, that's a rather black and white kind of question itself. There are ends of the spectrum that are pretty clear I don't have control, pretty clear I do have control. And there's this huge gray zone in the middle, where I may not have control on an outcome or what happens, but I can do something about it. The letter you were, or the quote you were reading was alluding to some of that too. That we can do things, but sometimes I layer in expectations to what I think I'm going to do, and so that question of adaptability to uncertainty, my biggest struggle for me is when my estimation of what I have control over and what I don't have control over, when I get it wrong. And it's usually where I think I might have some control and I totally don't. So that even to meet, you had examples there of offering kindness even when there's animosity towards it, and yet then all of a sudden there's no reciprocation or it has no value or it seemingly doesn't do anything. That's one where I find, I thought it might have an effect, right? Those are interesting things.
Yeah, so the unexpected, that you don't get a response to your kindness. Yeah. And that is a high level of practice, to be able to remain open-hearted when there's no reciprocation. So it's a good thing to look into. Can I not take it personally when someone is incapable of reciprocating our kindness? Yeah, that was a lot of wisdom you said there. So thank you. I'm not going to repeat it. Everybody heard it, I think. But yeah, thank you. There are a lot of differences between levels of uncertainty. We all know someday we're going to have a flat tire, and some of us will be able to fix it ourselves, and some of us will call someone to help us. I think my husband showed me about 10 times how to change a tire. And I'm like, oh yeah, I hope you're with me when it goes flat. I sound very incapable, but it's true. anything else you want to share? I've really enjoyed being with you. Yeah.
Sure thing. I like that you brought up the concept of like pausing, and because I don't think we often feel that we can or that we're allowed, because this world right now moves so fast and so much is demanded of us through our devices, and so pausing is, I feel like I have to remind myself often that like that's an option, and with that maybe even rest. We're not really allowed to rest. I mean, we are, but you know, it's not the message that we have been living with is go, 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 just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across this woman who she has started ministry of rest, and people come and like rest together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, to get to say like, yes, you can do that. This is good. We
can rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, allowing that to slow down and pause. So as you say, like that's so needed in order to navigate
Stressful situations, yes. And certainly in the middle of life, that is true. Like, looks like what most of you are probably in is a stage of life where you're very busy and have a lot of, not all of us, but I remember feeling proud that by 10 a.m. I had 6 loads of laundry done and I got in the groceries on a Saturday, and then I could take my kids to sports. I mean, there are stages of life where you're just really busy. So yeah, how do you give yourself permission to rest in that stage of life? That's probably what you're talking about. Yeah.
I love the invitation and the pause too, like
Yeah.
for what you were speaking to, which is like wise choice.
Yeah.
You know, to have the wisdom to know and what we need, you know, to take that break and say, is this what I need? Do I need to carry on this conversation? Do I need to take a break from it? You know, do I need to keep building this website in frustration and anger? Probably not. You know, then take a break from it. You know, do I need to reply to that email right now? You know, when I maybe feel triggered or I'm having an emotional response that isn't wise speech. You know, it's like I can pause. Like to me, that is the greatest gift of a mindfulness practice, and my practice has been space to say yes to a pause for myself and my relationships and all that I'm doing in the world. It's a huge gift.
So do you want to remind us what's coming next?
Yes. What time is it?
It is 8:31.
31, and you all are like, wrap it up. Okay. So you remember first and third Thursday, come back with us. Great things are happening.